Hello and welcome to the second part of KroniK's IC jump mapping tutorial. In this part we're going to cover just kind of the basics of getting into Zero Radiant, some of the different functions, kind of going over the menus, what's available to use in them, and just kind of some general overview, and then we'll get into working with some surface generators and creating a jump. Yeah. All right. So to start out with, one thing that I realized that I didn't cover in part one is setting up Urban Terror to run your maps without having to package your maps. So there's a way to do this. What first thing I'm going to go to my mapping directory here. I'm going to create a shortcut. Let me see here. Create shortcut. Oops, wanted it on the desktop. If you right click it and go to properties, you'll see this target location where it sets the location of where to start up Urban Terror from. After that, you want to put a space, a plus sign, and say set sv underscore pure, and then space and a 0. That's not an O, that's a 0. And what that'll do is that'll set up Urban Terror so that then later we can just open it and run maps without having to package them. So that'll make it everything a lot easier and handier. So I'm going to say OK. And for my cases, I think I'm going to pin this to my taskbar just to make things easier. And let me check really quick. Yep, okay. So I have that right there now. So let's open up Radiant. Okay, so to first go over file, um, most everything in here is pretty self-explanatory. You use import a lot to import what RAM surface generators create. A lot of there's a lot of things that you tend to use on keyboard that you don't necessarily use the menus for, or use soft buttons here, like these are rotate and mirror buttons. Um, One thing that's really handy, if I open up let me see here, if I open up IC Cube, I don't have the shaders, by the way, but um, anyways, there's not very many of them, so it won't take very long. But if I open up this map, there's a button, this button right here, which changes how you view in this 3D window. And basically, it can speed up your processing time. It kind of depends on how fast your computer is. But right now, I can move through this pretty easily, and I see everything. Um, I can look out and I can see my entire map here. Um, if I turn this button on, it makes it so I can't see it, but it only shows brushes that you're within a certain distance from. So it makes rendering um, a whole lot easier on your computer. So if you have a slower computer, it makes things run much smoother. Um, so yep, quick tip on that. Um, Selection, most of these I don't use. BSP, this is what you use to compile your map, although I will have you install Q3 map to build, and that is for testing. You'll probably just use this test here, but for a final compile, which I'll go over in a much later part of the series, um, you'll want to use Q3 map to build, or if you're really good at scripting, but I'm not, so I'm going to teach you how to use Q3 map to build. Textures, this has some useful stuff in it. Flush reload shaders, that'll um, basically reload what shaders you have. Your shader list text only, that's what I showed you before, that's handy. The surface inspector is really handy. It has a window to that you can change, like how big your textures are, like how they're scaled and how they're rotated and stuff. Um, Basically, I'll go over most of the stuff as we get into it. but those are kind of basics. Basics of drawing or making brushes. Uh, Basically, left click and drag will create a brush. Um, you want to create brushes in your 2D window mostly. If you hit Control Tab, you'll change views. So you can see top view, side view, front view. Um, and then in here, if you right click, you get a view that you can look around. And then if you hold down the Control button, you can move around, you can move your camera around. Or if you use the scroll wheel, you can zoom in and zoom out or move your camera forward and backward. So that's kind of how you move around in the 3D view. Once you've created a brush, you can, there's several different ways to edit it. Uh, Most commonly, you'll want to just left click out. If you left click on one of the outside the brush that's selected, uh, like on the top here, it'll move up and down. Um, on the side, obviously you move side to side. If you click out on a corner, you move both side to side and up and down at the same time. Um, Obviously, scroll wheel is zoom in and out. Um, if you click and drag from the on the inside of a brush, it moves the brush. It doesn't readjust size. So basically, through all of those things, you can edit your brushes. If you hit the V key on your keyboard, that's V as in Victor, it'll show vertices, and then you can edit those vertices to create polygon shapes. Um, so as you can see, um, you can create, oops, lost it, there it is. Um, and if you hit V key again, it'll go away. And so you can create different shapes using that. Control Z is the undo button. Control Y redoes, but if you hold down the control button and left click on the outside of a brush, you can move that surface, that edge around to create different uh, like to basically move the brush on an angle, so you can create like angled brushes like that fairly easily. Another good tool is the clipper. You can create triangles from the clipper. If you select the clipper, go like this corner to this corner. What's yellow is what will be saved. So if you hit enter, it only keeps um, the portion that was highlighted. If I undo that, another way to get the clipper instead of using the clipper button is if you hold down Control and right click, you can get right there, there, and then if you hit Shift Enter, it keeps both of them and just clips it. So now you have two separate brushes, and you can select which one you want to delete, or if you just want to move them, you can do whatever you want with them. So that's kind of handy. See here, anything else? I think that's it for right now on just basics. So let's go ahead and make a jump. So first off, everything that you start out with, the way I map, there are kind of two different views on how you map. Um, my view is that I create everything cocked first. So if I go to, oops, not that one, tutorial common, I use the cock texture. And basically what the cock texture does is it's anything that has the cock texture on it, it's not actually rendered by the Urban Terror engine. And so if you have, let's say if you created a really complex jump with, created a really complex jump with lots and lots of like curves and things that have a whole bunch of different brushes, and you have them all textured on all sides, the Urban Terror is going to be rendering all of each one of those sides, even though you can't see it. So there's really no reason for Urban Terror to be rendering those sides if you can't see it. So they should be cocked, and it'll make it will make Urban Terror run your map faster. You'll get faster FPS, and on slower computers, we'll be able to run it at a higher FPS if you make sure that everything is cocked. Now, for when I first created this, I had you guys use um, this RAM common, and I think it's a great place to start. But I don't like the squares that he uses for, um, or basically the what you see in game or in Radiant with for his common textures. And so what I like better is uh, is a different set. I'm going to go to my actual mapping directory where I keep my actual mapping stuff. So I'm going to, there's a, um, it's called A Common. It was put out by Xandus, and I'm going to use that instead for these tutorials because it really makes judging distances and sizes of things in Radiant a whole lot easier. And so, oops, I'm going to go back to our mapping directory. And scripts, a common. And I'll show you what I mean by that. And I have actually edited this this common textures more for icy jumping, and I will post a download link in the comments section of this video, so that you can download my version, which has some more shaders in it, which are necessary for icy jumping. So a common, actually, no, yeah, at this point, I'm just going to keep it as a common because I don't want to go in and change the name right now. I showed you how to do that in the last tutorial, and I don't want to take the time out of this tutorial to show to do that. So I'm going to refresh my shader list by unchecking it and then checking it again, and you should see a common shows up right at the top. And here we have it has some more textures in it. So I'm going to select that and use this cock texture. And the reason I use this cock texture is because each one of these squares, if I was to go top-down view, select each one of these squares, well, there's 4 squares. Basically, there's 4 squares to a to one 64 by 64 square, one major grid line, basically, on the 2D view. And so it helps to judge distances in Radiant, and that's because if I go into IC tutorial, I'll show you what I mean. If I clicked on one of these tiles, oops, yeah, if I was to texture the surface, it's basically one one of these textures you end up with like one perfect set of 4 textures on. So you can kind of judge, because each one of these square tiles is the same size as the colored square tiles are the exact same size as the square tiles on this cock, as opposed to if I go to tutorial common and use this cock, there's 2 squares, and it kind of throws off when you're kind of envisioning what you're drawing in your mind or what you're making in Radiant, this kind of helps you to judge like sizes of things um, a little bit better than this cock texture. So I'm going to be using the A common textures. So there we go. And again, I'll post a download link to that in the comment section. So to start off with a basic jump, the first thing is 99, like most jumps that I've created, I found that either if you want to create like a noob filter, like most of Ram's, like Icy World noob filter, let me see here, Icy Sequel noob filter, those ones I believe are 1024 blocks. Well, they might even be a little bit wider than that. Um, but 1024 is normally a nice big starting for like a noob filter when you're going to have a lot of people. If it's a beginning jump, you're going to want the space to be pretty wide so that there's space for all the players. On later jumps, you can make this narrower. I found that in most cases, making a starting uh, like a starting flat surface 512 is about right for it's about right for creating nice curves. It's the same size as Spring Fling start. You know, Spring Fling is 512 wide, so that's about kind of something to think about. And you can kind of see that when you're looking at these squares here. You can see, you know, you can kind of envision the player here and how much space you got here. So I'm going to start out with that. You normally want to start out with a nice big, um, like a 512 by 384 is about right um, for a non-icy surface to start out your jump. And then if you hit space, you then will copy that brush. And so then I'll click and drag and make a nice run up. And all right, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to create kind of a maroon spin thing. Um, so I'm going to start off with that. Now to create a circle, kind of a curve around, um, we're going to make, I think I'm going to make a big curve that you have to spin around. Probably have this just be a drop off and spin around and land in a quarter pipe. So I think I'm going to make this a bit longer because I need a bit more run up. That's about right, I think. Yeah. Okay. So on to the surface generators. So let's see here. Hermitaire mapping surface generators, which is mapgen.nereus.com. I'm going to select the cylinder generator. All right. So with the cylinder generator, the inner radius is what really matters because we're going to be on the inside of the cylinder. So if we look at a perfect radius, which would be if you did a 180 turn, it and would be with the center perfectly right here on this corner, you'd want a 512. You want a radius of 512 because that's from 0 to 512, and so that would be your radius. In this case, I think I want it a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it 640. So I want the inner radius to be 640, and then I like to have a small, really thin. I like everything in my maps to be thin because it makes things look cleaner, I guess. So my outer radius is going to be 648. because one minor grid line on oh yeah, I guess I forgot to mention this before, but you can change the size of these minor grid lines. They're smaller by hitting the row of numbers above your keyboard. So like 1 is the smallest, and you can zoom in and see that's actually 1 unit, and that is 1 unit. If you hit 4, that's what it normally starts out on, and that's 8 units. Each that's 8 units across and 8 units down. Um, 6 is another good one because it just cuts each one of the major grid lines in half. 9 is really huge. 7, yeah, 7 is the one where it's just 64 squares, so it only does major grid lines. But most of the time I want it on 4, and I want everything to be basically 8 units in size. So like if we look at the side here, it's one of the minor grid lines thick, and that's the way I like all of my maps to be. But that's a personal preference. It's not necessarily something you have to stick by, but I would suggest making your map uniform so that all of everything is the same thickness. Okay, so back to cylinder generator. So I made that 8 units, made everything 8 units thick. The height, at this point, I think I'm going to want it, let's see here, how tall. I can change this later, but it's good to get a rough estimate. I'm going to want it to extend probably 256 above our surface, and then probably go down to 768 below. So if we open up our calculator, 768 plus 256, I don't want to do it in my head, 1024. Okay, so we're going to make it 1024 tall. Oops, close that. Okay, so make it 1024. And I'm going to generate non-overlapping brushes. Submit. Go, nope, wrong mapping folder. In my maps folder, I'm going to delete the autosave. I'm going to make a new folder for our map here, which I forgot to do earlier, but now's a good time as any. Let's see here, let's say part 2. Open that up. And I like to create a folder in here that says surface gen. And this is, I just keep all of my surface generator stuff in here. And oops, this should say, I'm actually gonna cancel this because I like to keep things the way, it says cylinder. Okay, so computer, mapping, urban terror, maps, part 2, surface gen. Save that. And I want to do cylinder shingles because that's clinging high speeds while clinging on the inside of a cylinder. So I'm going to submit and cylinder shingles, save. Okay, so, oops. That's one thing I don't enjoy about Windows 7. Accidentally clicking. Okay, so I'm going to file, import my, again, wrong mapping. I'm going to import my cylinder, and you can see it stores it right here. It normally imports it without texture, so I'm going to caulk it. And then I like to, just because it makes everything easier, I like to unselect it, import the shingles right there, and it automatically places the shingles right in the perfect spot. And shingles, we always want player clip. The player clip traction, I'm not going to have this wall jumpable. I only want you to I only want the player to, fly smoothly inside. So I'm going to do that. And now I get to select the outside of this so that we can move it. All right. Now, the other thing about creating these small is it's a little bit more difficult to move. So I know that I want it to start right here. And I want the top of it, what did I say, 256? Yep, there we go. Now this is actually rotated wrong, and I want to rotate on the z-axis. There we go. Now we have to look at the shingle direction, and the shingle direction is good. You want, in case you were trying to go the other way around the cylinder, that would be the wrong way because you would be bumping onto the shingles here. So you have to make sure that you got the shingles going the right direction. And then I'm going to space to copy, Z to rotate, just like that. Get the front view and line this guy right up. Oops, and it's offset a bit. Okay, there we go. And now we have ourselves a big cylinder that we can fly inside of. And so then, let's see here. I'm going to create, I think at this point, to make a nice smooth landing, as always, you should, for smooth landings that you don't have to be super duper precise, which is, to be perfectly honest, really nice because some people will be able to make your jump just barely and other people will be able to super over jump it. And so to make things nicer for everybody, it's good to make landings with wedges when you're coming out of, so similar to, what do you call it, midnight motocross. So I'm going to create, first off, the brush is going to be 256 wide, or I'm sorry, 512. Just like that. I believe that is the correct width, yes. And at the moment it's too tall. So, and I don't think I'm going to start it, well, I'll draw it on the bottom for right now. But I think I want my ramp to be about yay long. Yeah, that's about right. And I want that all cocked. Okay. And then going to want it about how high do I think you could make it. So just guesstimating about speed and stuff. I'm actually thinking that it would be smart to move this back, make the landing further away by about like that. So person gets speed, probably lands, yeah, right about there. I may be totally wrong, and that's why we do map testing. So then what you're going to do from here is there's kind of two ways to go about this. You can either hit V and drag these vertices down to create a wedge. That creates a perfectly normal wedge. Or the way I like to do it, you use the clipper to clip the brush. That actually creates a much more, for some reason, when you move the vertices, you end up deforming the brush, I guess. It makes things, it just messes things up for some reason. Now, next thing, looking at this, it's going to be pretty easy to lemming on this edge because you have this odd angle, and so you're automatically going to lemming on it. So to solve that problem, we need to create a flat spot. So there we go, flat spot. And now you won't lemming on that anymore. So that's one. So anytime you have an angle like this, you have to create a flat spot right off the edge of that to fix lemmings. Okay, and then you see here we're going to create another flat here, which I will probably make like that. Okay, and then, oh, here's an idea. We're going to make a fling. Flings are fun, right? Okay. So next step, I'm going to make a fling. So to make flings, like pink fling or banana crossover type fling, I'm going to use quarter pipe generator. And 512 is a little small for this because we're going to be gaining massive speed by this time. So I think I want it to be 768, 728. I always have to look back on my 768. I think I'm going to do that. It might be completely, utterly massive, and we might have to make it smaller later. But 768. Cross section needs to be, let me see here, 770. Hang on. This is why I have a calculator. 768 plus 8. Length is going to be 512. Generate. Now for this, let me see here. For a fling, in this case, we're going to, create non-overlapping brushes. Okay. And then for this one, I'm going to create overlapping brushes because it generally removes lemmings much better than using shingles. So for quarter pipes and things, you want to use overlapping brushes unless you somehow start getting lemmings, in which case you want to switch to shingles. It's kind of go back and forth to figure out which one you want to use. So I'm going to generate overlapping brushes this time. Okay, so we're going to, first off, it's been a while. I want to save this. So I'm going to say part 2. I'm going to create a new folder called maps. Actually, in this case, to make everything a lot easier for testing in Radiant, I'm going to go straight in my maps folder and save this in my maps folder. That's not what I meant. Okay, there we go. Now it's saved. So now I'm going to import my pipe. Open up. Okay. Yeah, this might be a little on the massive side. I can already tell that is way too big. So, looks like my brain was thinking a little too big. So let's go 512. That should be good. So 520. First off, just create the pipe. Yes. And then generate overlapping. Okay. Let's import that. Oh, that's much better. Okay. So, first off, we're going to cock that. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that, leave that right there. I'm going to cock that. And in this case, I'm actually going to use hollow cock. Now, the reason I'm going to use that, because we're using overlapping brushes, the actual structure, what you're going to be basically what the player is going to be using is the overlapping brushes, but the overlapping brushes look terrible when you like texture them. So what we have to do is we have to make it so that you can only see the non-overlapping, but you're not actually walking on the non-overlapping. And so the hollow cock, what that does is that makes this a like a surface param non-solid. It makes it a non-solid so that if this was placed here without the overlapping brushes, you would be able to walk right through it. So yeah, so I'm going to leave that right there where it was and import the overlapping brushes, which go right on top of it, and that's going to be player clip. Now, selecting all of this can be quite painful. You basically hope that you select everything that you want to. Okay. So now, first off, I need to rotate this because it's facing the wrong direction. Oh, that's interesting. I made my secondary landing platform too wide. It's not 512. I'll change that in a moment. But, so I'm going to rotate it, line these up here, line it up here. And then while this is all still selected, which makes everything easier, copy, rotate it in the Z, nope, rotate it along the Y to give us this here. I believe that is correct. Yes. Okay. So there we have a nice big fling. That's still going to be pretty massive, but that's okay. And actually, I kind of like the idea of having this whole thing be wider than 512. In fact, I think I might make it even wider to be able to fit just an 8 size wall in between, because at the moment we have some space here. So I'm going to set it up so that all we need is a wall that's size 8 in between there. Already. It's going to be nice and wide. Oh, interesting. Somehow, those are no longer cocked. Okay. So then I'm going to do selection time. Make sure I get everything all selected here because I need to make these. Okay, got everything selected there, I think. Yep. And I now need to make this wider. So you have to be careful. I think that is okay. Okay, I think I'm good. Hope and pray that I didn't mess it up. I don't think I did. Yeah, it looks fine. Okay. There we go. Okay, so there we have the basics of our jump. We now need to basically create the other, now that we have the basics, oh yeah, I'm now thinking that instead of a full fling like that, we're going to want to probably delete some of these. So back, space those. Let me see here, where is, okay, there we go. That's good. And so in that fling, and then I will create a platform up here. I'm thinking platform like right here-ish. Fling, yeah, that should be maybe about right. I don't know. We'll see. And in fact, I'm going to create several platforms that are all two. This is all how I go about jump design testing. Oops. Oh yes, for some reason these are too wide. Okay. And so hopefully I should be able to make it onto one of these platforms. Great. Okay, so now we have an ending that possible endings. Okay. Now we just need to create an encasing for everything. So to start off with that, one thing that you might want to note is that when you select a brush, basically the constraints of this brush are going to apply to whatever you draw next. So if you select this brush and I start drawing like that, it's going to be on the same plane, it's going to be on the same level as this brush, and it's going to be the same thickness. So if I was to go Shift Tab and I was to create something this way, it's now, you see this here, but it's still got the same width as this brush here, and it's on the same, you know, it's yeah, you get the point. So I'm going to select this here and then Control Tab, create a wall here. Now that's really small, but we can make it taller. And my watch is going off. Okay. Now I'm going to make this, I think the ceiling is going to be right about there-ish. Yes. Which means that this, now that we're going through all this, this here, this curve is not tall enough. So we need to select the curve and bring it up to height. Okay, and that was the shingles, so I'm going to hide them now, and then select the rest of these. And actually I'm going to set this to size 6, that way it makes it easier. See here, is that right? I think that's right. Nope. Actually, that is right, and I messed up on the shingles. Although technically, we really don't need the shingles to be this high. I'm going to drop them actually back down. Because we don't need the shingles to be that high, because you're not going to get that high. But we want to see the curve that high, just for visual purposes. So, now that is going all the way to there. And then I'm going to copy that by pressing spacebar, putting this, oops, switching back to foregrid. Okay, there we go. Full walls there. And then we need a back. This is going to be the same height because I had the other one selected, so it'll stay the same height. There we go. I like to leave, I don't like to overlap my corners. So like if you notice here and here, I just barely have the corners just barely touch. This will prevent leaks. I don't like to overlap them like this. It's just a personal preference. You can do whatever you want. I think it looks cleaner this way, but it's your choice. Then we're going to take this, copy it, move it. Oops, didn't want to increase the height, but we can do that for moving it. To move it up so that it becomes a roof. Okay, so now we have a roof there. Now there's two ways to make a roof over this. and a floor for this. The proper way is go to Ram's generators, do a disk generator. The radius, what did we have the radius at? It was 6 something. The radius we created for this was 640. So I want the radius to be 640. Height is going to be 8. It's going to be just fine. Say submit. Save it. Okay. Going to open it up. Now you can do a cheapo method where you just simply create a brush, a square brush that covers over it. And I mean, that'll work, but it doesn't look very clean. So the proper way to do it is to do a disk generator, import my disk. Need to rotate it, and it should fit just snug. There we go. It fits just perfectly. Needs to be cocked. We will move it up to the top for. Okay, yep, that's just perfect for that. And then we're going to copy it, move it down to the bottom. Oops. Ooh, it's a bit quick. For our floor. I think it's off, yes. Okay, there we go. Now we have our ceiling and our floor inside the curve. Now this brings up an interesting point. Depending on how many, depending on what, I guess, depending on how many brushes you have in your map, this might not be the best method for creating a ceiling. This is one way that makes it really clean and on the mini-map looks great. However, there's also the fact that because you have all of these brushes, you can end up with some compiling errors because you can't make these detail. You have to keep them. What do you call it? Structural, because they're what separates the inside here from the void outside. And so you'd have to keep them structural, which could present problems. So sometimes you're smarter off just creating a box around the outside and then making all of these detail. And for this case, I actually think that that could be a better way to do this. So I'm going to select all of these. Oops, there's a little one left. And I'm going to create a box around it because I want to make everything detail. Or make that entire curve detail anyway. So I'm going to create a roof. Okay. Oh, and because I just selected that, it's now the exact same height. There we go. There's that. I think that's right. Yes. So we now have a floor and ceiling. And I'm going to select this to get the right height. And then I'm going to create kind of a box here so that create a box so that everything is all held within and we get no leaks. Alrighty then. Now, going to need to create a wall here that will extend. Yeah, let's do this. Make it a little bit easier on myself. Back to 4. There we go. So now I have a wall there. And this wall, I just realized, will actually need to be the full height as well as the full length. So there you go. And we need to have a back for this that goes behind our fling. Okay, and we also need to create a base which goes underneath the fling because we're going to make that detail. Okay, I think that should work. Yes, actually, it only needs to be that size. Okay, and then we need to create a ceiling over the whole thing, which if I do frontways, and I select this wall, and then I draw like this, I think that's right. Let's see here. Okay, it doesn't need to be. Alright, now I have a ceiling. And, oh, giant gaping hole here and here. Should probably fix that. So, first going to draw this one here. And it's obviously too tall. Okay, there's that. And then we need a floor there. Okay, there we go. So now we have everything basically set up and ready for making things detail. So I'm now going to start making things detail. So select, and if you hit Control D, that'll only show, that'll make all the detail brushes disappear. So then when I hit Control M, this was not working the other day either. You go Selections, Make Detail. Control M should work. I don't know why, but it'll disappear. You'll get to see your textures disappear. So, or your brushes disappear that are details. So, going through. Oops, don't want that. I don't know why, but my keyboard thing is not working. Alright, so now you just see the box. Let me see here. I don't really like having these triangle brushes be structural because they're big, and it just makes me feel like it's not a clean map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that brush. I'm going to extend it all the way underneath there, so then I can select both of these, make those detail. Now all of this not that, but all of that needs to be made detail. And this here needs to be made detail as well. Alright, so now we have basically big squares. Oh, these are not essential. So Make those details as well. Okay, so now we have big square boxiness. And if I hit Control D, everything reappears. So now we can see our, no, with, that's just the, everything that holds the light in so that it doesn't leak, and then here's the rest of the everything. So now it's time to texture. So I'm going to go IC tutorial, and let's see here, which one do we, what do we want to make these? Let's make this a Bordeaux jump. So again, when you're, okay, so when you first are texturing these, you don't want to texture the sides of the brushes that nobody's going to see, like I mentioned before. So you want to hold Control and Shift and then left click, and you'll only select the face. You'll only select the inside face here. And so then we can texture that. One thing that I just realized, when you texture this face, as you'll notice, it'll also texture it down here or outside where it's not, you're not necessarily going to need, just to make things look cleaner. I'm going to split this brush using the clipper. So let me see here. What I'm going to do is use that and hit Shift Enter to cut it, and then this one here, Shift Enter to clip it. So now when I select this face, it's only selecting what's visible there and not outside. Okay, so this here, I'm going to make that Bordeaux not slick. I don't want that one to be slick. And then this one I do, because I don't want you to wall jump off it. We'll save the ceiling for later, because we're going to add in a skybox. Oh yeah. Now for these bottom parts, we want them to be non-icy, so that when you land there, you won't be sliding around like a buffoon. You have to make sure you don't miss things like that small edge there or this edge here. Okay, so now this is starting to bring us to a tricky part here, which is selecting these guys here, which, to be perfectly honest, is going to be a pain. So, what I'm going to do, here's a trick for you. This is the only thing at the moment that's textured with holocock. Let me see here. I wonder, is there a selection? See here. View, filter, cock. Okay, so what I did there is I filtered out all the cock textures, which included that holocock. You can then select all of these player clip textures, which you don't want to see when you're texturing. I'm going to hide them. And I'm going to go to select view, filter, cock. You can see only the cock texture now. So now we can select these faces and texture them. Aha, see, I'm sneaky. Oh yes. It's okay. You end up with these weird sections that don't look correct. Most likely you're not going to be able to see this top surface, but I'm not going to test that. So, alright. Now these ones should all... I'm actually, just because there's only two sides of these that you aren't going to see, I'm just going to texture all the sides of those. And I want those to be non-icy. Okay. Now, let's see here. Where is our ceiling, our stratosphere and stratosphere hollow? I wonder why those are missing. Let's take a look-see. Oh, I misspelled tutorial. Right then. So now if I do textures, flush and reload shaders, it'll only, because I'm only using these textures so far, it'll only show these. Then I'm going to go back, click on IC tutorial. It'll reload all the textures. What do you know? There's our sky texture. So I'm going to select our sky. Don't worry, it looks horrible in Radiant, but it really does look cool once you open it in Urban Terror. And just to add some flair to this, I kind of feel like actually making this cock again, making a second layer right underneath this whole texture here. I'm going to make glass clear. I'm hoping that this is slick. I'm going to hide it. Give this that. And now, because you can see this side here, I'm going to have to texture these sides. Okay, Shift H to reshow the hidden textures. So now I have an ice texture here, and you'll be able to see the world down below, just to give it, something that looks cool. Now, one thing about glass textures, if you have a glass texture touching like another brush, you have two brushes just touching right here, you'll end up with the glass edges looking funky. They'll get all wonky on you. They just won't look right. They'll actually look, you see how you see that kind of messing around because the two brushes are overlapping? You'll get that in game here. So what we want to do, there's two solutions to this. The first one is Rambetter's way. The way Rambetter did it, he went to unit 1, so the very smallest, and simply just pulled it away from the edge by 1 on all sides. And if you look at any Rambetter map, you'll notice that where glass meets the side of a or the edge of a normally textured, it's slightly pulled away, and that's to prevent that. The other way, which I prefer because I don't like being able to notice that, if I hide this, I'm actually going to hide these things around it. I'm going to go over here to these here, hide these. So, oh, oops. let me see here. I'm going to go on the outside. Select this, select this, select this, this, and this. And I'm going to select these. I'm going to hide them. Now what I can do, I'd say the easiest way to do this is select the whole thing, make it player clip, and then select the top, make it clear. Actually, I'm going to do glass clear. And then select the bottom, make it glass clear. And now you won't be able to see the edges. There'll be no texture for the edges. It's only got texture for top and bottom. And then so now that we have, so that'll fix that problem. Okay, and that'll fling. Okay, now to set up things like portals, teleporters, and such. I'm going to first, you have to create a, oh yeah, I need to reset my grid. First thing I need to do is create a place for the player to spawn. So if you right click, get this menu under Info, Player Start. That's the one I like to use. That'll create a start player or a player start. I need to make sure, see, it's way down here. It needs to be up here. Okay. If it's a multiplayer where you're actually starting out, you're going to want a whole bunch of these so that people can all spawn in nicely. Just going to do it like that. So we have some player spawns. Then next, whoa, my mouse is acting funky. We are going to want to make teleporters. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the destinations. I know this seems backwards, but it's okay. And my mouse is getting funky. Hang on a second. Stupid little optical sensor doesn't like me sometimes. Okay, so if you right click, go to MISC for miscellaneous, and teleporter dest, you end up with a little 64 by 64 orange square. That's just great. It's perfect for what we want. I'm going to raise it up a bit and bring it back a bit. So up and above the player starts. And I'm going to hit space. And I think 3 should be fine for just this. But I'm going to select all of them. If you hit N on your keyboard, you'll bring up the Entities menu. Now, when you first open up the Entities menu, it looks really weird. You have no idea what's going on. Take this up here and drag it down. This will give an explanation of kind of how to use it. For teleporter dests, you want to add a thing that's called a target name. So that's these teleporter destinations are the target, and so we need to give them a name. And so I'm going to call this Tele1. Okay. Now, we need to go down here. Obviously, easiest place to fail, probably right here. So I'm going to create a let's see here. I don't want that to be way up there. I like to create my teleporters 64 square and then by 2 of those 64s high. That's just me. I don't know, I think that's a good size. Actually, I kind of like them to be a little bit fatter, maybe. I don't know. Try and make them uniform. It makes everything look better. But I then want to give that the portal texture. So I now have a portal. Now what you want to do is once you've got that all set up, you want to hit space to copy it, and you want to put it right in the exact same spot. And you want to texture this, if you go to your common textures, with trigger. So textured with trigger. So you can see that. Then you're going to hit N. Well, actually, okay. Okay. Now I've got the trigger texture. If you hit N, you notice it's world spawn, which is no good. So I'm going to right click, go to trigger. See, good name. Teleport. And then we can hit N. So now that it's a teleporter, we need to give it a target. And we want our target to be Tele1. So if you hit enter, you should see arrows pop up, and they should be going to that. So it'll teleport you to the start again. And so then we have our little teleporter there. Now, I'm also going to copy this. So I'm going to select everything there, hit spacebar. We're now copying. I'm going to, over here, set this up so that it's floating in the air. I think that's about right for as far as height-wise. So if you fail this, if you fail that, you can use this teleporter. Actually, I'm going to move it over here. I think that makes more sense. Anyways, okay, so now we have a teleporter there, so that if you fail here, you can get teleported back. Okay, so at this point, the skybox will give off light, but it's going to look pretty dark, especially in this section here. So I'm going to add lights. So to add lights, you're going to right-click, go to Light. 700 should be just about right for this. And I'm going to place the first one. I'm kind of anal about how I do lights, so right in the center there looks good now. And I want to bring it up. Most of the skybox is going to light up. Is going to light up the top half, so I'm going to just, yep, that's about right, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to kind of illuminate the bottom half. Space to copy. Let me see here. I think that's about right. As far as spacing goes, I think that's right. Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, that is actually center. So I didn't have them centered before. I was confused with everything going on down there. Okay, so now that we got that centered, this is probably going to be pretty shadowy. I'm going to set up a light here right in the center radius, because the center of the radius is 640. Create a light. And actually for this one, I'm going to make it 1200. A little bit bigger. I'm actually going to move it in just like that. Yep, one there. And then I'm going to drop, do same thing, only down near the floor. So 2 lights there. These are not going to be lit up very well. So, first off, just because it's easier, I'm going to copy this light over here. Although this light is not, I don't think this light is bright enough. So I'm going to change the value to 1000. Actually, yeah, 1000 should be good. And in this case, I'm going to place it right here over the top. There we go. One there, one down here. One right there. Then I think I will also include one. I'll let those be shadowy. Okay, I think that'll decently light this. So then, I think that's it. Now we just have to compile. So I will save what we have here. Let's try compiling. BSP test. Yay. Oh no, we leaked. Where did we leak? Let's hit Control D to remove. Oh, see? We missed something. Oops, that was too far. I need to reset my grid size. There we go. See? Oftentimes you will miss something. Now let's try it. There we go. Everything worked great. Super fast, super simple. Gets it done. Now, we can open up Urban Terror, which we created here, this shortcut that we created here earlier. Open up console, just type dev map, part 2. Hey look, it's lit quite nicely. It's a little on the dark side, which is nice. It's not super duper. Let's see here, where does Icy start? Right there. Oops, I'm going to want to start on the other side. And there we go. Oh, one thing I didn't do, but I will show you in just a moment. And it looks like this might be too hard, which it looks like I just might need to extend the beginning platform. Yes. Okay, so beginning platform's too short. So that's a quick fix. I can see that now. Okay. So one thing that when creating teleporter destinations, you want to, first I'm going to select them. You want to create a brush in front of them, player clip, that's nice and tall. That basically, that'll make it so that you just fall straight down. Okay, so now what I want to do is this here. Okay. First off, I'm going to move the back wall back. I think I want enough for 2 curves, which, I don't know. Let's move it back to here and see what we get. And I'm going to hide that so that I can select these things easier. Move these guys back. Gonna want to move all these guys back. Alright. Now this here has texture problems because we textured it differently. So, going to move that back to there. And this one simply going to be stretched to here. Now, if I remember correctly, yeah, leafscaping hole. So, instead, first, what we have to do is also clip this one in that direction. Okay, there we go. Now, this can be brought back to here, and this can be brought over to here. Okay. Shift H. Okay. Now, one thing, because we moved a bunch of stuff, what you want to do is if you hit select everything, which you can select one thing, hit I, which will select everything else, and then select your one thing again. Hit S for surface inspector and hit axial. What that'll do is that'll reset all your textures so that the squares and everything line up if it had been messed with before, which is strange for this here. Why is that so messed up? Normally, the axial fixes things. For some reason, on this pipe here, it did not. Not exactly understanding why. But yeah, okay. So now we got seamless textures. Okay, and let's build it again. There we go. Alright. It's not UT4, it's just part 2. Oh, and I forgot to add another light down here, so it's probably a good thing to remember things like that. Yeah, that was horrible. I know. Gotta love my awesome icy skills. And as you can see, I don't know, I could fiddle with the height to make this perfect, but I think that you guys get the general idea of how this jump works, so. And mostly it's just learning the process of making a jump, rather than, you know, there's going to be a lot of testing involved in making changes and things in any jump map, but that's the general idea. I guess one thing I will do, because this is a tutorial and you'll want to learn how to do this, I'm going to create a booster. First off, though, I'm going to take this light and reposition another light right there. That way we have better lighting. Okay, but booster, that would make this better. I'm going to make a booster right here. So, let's see here. I'm going to first off create a square, which is not quite where I want it. Okay, so create kind of a long thing like this. Put it about where I want it. I only want it one high. Okay, and let's see here. What do I want with it? Okay, if I'm going to do this back. Take this. I'm going to mirror it on the x-axis, I think. Nope, y-axis. There we go. Nope, guess not. There it is, x-axis. So now I have a triangle here. I'm actually going to this time use, yeah, okay, clipper method. To click there, I think there. And I just, oops, nope. Another quick tip. If you hit Control Enter, it'll switch which which side is selected. To be clipped. Okay. There we go. Now I have similar to one of Ram's booster thingies. For this, I think, see here, there aren't any boosters in, there are no boosters in ICSQL, so we don't have textures for them. So what I'm going to do, what am I going to do? I'm going to close that. I'm going to take a texture from Icy Galaxy. But you can't guess which one. Oops, no. That's not what I want to do. Okay, and then scripts, find my rainbow script. Save my shader list. Alright, and textures, flush and reload. And do this again. Now we got our rainbow textures, which in this case we just want to be rainbow 1. Oops. Okay, so this is the rainbow text, the infamous rainbow texture from Galaxy. I'm going to hide this here, and on the seam, because I don't want this to be, because I want you to be able to walk through this, I'm going to make that trigger. And then I'm going to hide this other one as well. And basically what this will do is it does the same thing as what you do for the glass texture, so that where the two pieces meet, you don't see a seam there. Okay, so there we got that. Okay, now what I'm going to do, actually I'm only going to create a half point. Okay, I'm now going to create I just created a trigger brush, which I'm then going to copy, mirror on the x-axis, and rotate. Actually, no, I didn't want to do that. Why didn't I? How? Right. What I really want to do is I really want to make this one brush, so it's going to take several clips, but say yes. I want the other half. Okay, so now I have a trigger brush, which we then are going to make into, by right-clicking, we're going to say trigger multiple, N. Okay, we're going to need to target our booster. So our booster is going to be named, let's see here, boost 1. Okay, there's no boost 1 yet, but that's what we make next. We're going to right click, say target, push. We're going to want this to be up a little bit. Okay, hit N. We're going to give it the target name, boost 1. Bounce pad will give you the sound that we're all too familiar with. Now you can use angles and speed and those kind of things, but the easiest way to do this, to be perfectly honest, one thing you actually want your trigger brush to be right at the tip of the arrow. So the push brush should be like literally right on the tip of the arrow. Okay, now our push brush is going to be right here, I think. I think this will give us nice. Might be too much, but I'm not sure. So we're going to say trigger, no, it's going to be a target position or location. Okay, if you go into this, the entities menu of this, you can do a target push. Yeah, let me see here, target position or info null. So, or info not null. So we want a target position. That's what I thought. So we're going to right click, get a target position block. Say N, say target name is boost 1A, I think, just for convenience sake. And I'm going to target this to that one. So target boost 1A. So now what we got here is we have a trigger that when the player enters this trigger, it's going to activate this guy, which is going to push the player using this. This is like an aiming tool. So the trick to these aiming tools is it's not going to work if it's flat because it's meant to launch you up. It's supposed to be a bounce launcher. So it's not going to be able to launch you flat, so you have to give it an upward angle. By just a little bit, but yes, you have to give it an upward angle. Okay. Now this might be too much. I actually think it is, and so I'm going to bring it back there. And what basically you want this to be is you want this to be the apex of the way they say it is the apex of your jump. So if you want somebody to like start, if you say wanted somebody to start here, hit a peak right, hit a peak of a launch right up here, you'd create an aim, you'd move the aiming entity up here, and then they'd launch up, and that would be the very peak of where they're flying. So that's kind of how the aiming entity works. But I think that should be just about right. And then they'll have to curve over to be able to hit that. So, okay, let's try this. Let's save it. ESP test. Okay, let's try this. Open her up. Nope. Part 2. Alright, so there's that. And now you can see we have our flashing rainbowy launch pad. You can't see the trigger, but not powerful enough. Looks like. Oh, I didn't jump. Maybe that's why. And it looks like we need it to be more powerful because you're not going to be able to make that. So, really quick here. Let's move it out like there. That's going to be actually quite a big difference. So, yeah, see how big that difference is? I only moved it like one major grid line and a half, and it's quite a bit more powerful, but nope, not quite. Ooh, that was close. There we go, just like that. You could probably make top platform. Actually, I think what would be a little bit better is to, what really needs to happen here, just because of now seeing kind of how this all is working out, it would be much better if that slant was either further away or was quite a bit longer. Oh yeah, top platform, super easy. But anyways, if that was longer so that you can land, you can still have, so this needs to be out to like right here-ish. That'll make landing a whole lot smoother. But yeah, there we go. We have a nice little jump here that, yep. Anyways, that's about all I'm going to do, so for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed making the jump with me, and hope you learned some stuff in the process. So I'll see you next time.